I am delighted to be here. This county, this community, has not always been overwhelmingly Democratic. And I believe that the generous reception which you've given all of us who are running this year indicates that it's time that the Vice President came back to Illinois and started to look after his fences. Because I think Illinois will go Democratic on November 8th, and so will the United States. Mr. Nixon, as you know, ordinarily runs as a rather ambiguous figure who is not really attached to any party because parties have no significance. But the other day he went down there and Senator Goldwater got him in a room down in Arizona and said, "Dick, you're a Republican. You got to admit it." So Nixon came out of the room rather shamefacedly and said, "Yes, I am a Republican. And I endorse every Republican candidate from top to bottom with great pride." Well, I've been saying that I'm a Democrat for the last 14 years because I believe the Democratic Party is associated with progress, because I believe the Democratic Party is associated with the public interest, and I do not need Barry Goldwater or anyone else to remind me that parties are important. In fairness to the Vice President, I should say that he went to Jacksonville, Florida the next day and said party labels were not important. I should bring that up. But one of the reasons why I'm glad to be running this year in this state is because I run with three distinguished citizens of this state and country. We need the best talent we can get in the 60s on every level. Every problem that faces us requires new solutions because the problems are new. Lincoln and Douglas, who debated in this state, really debated one great question in every debate: the question of the position of the Union, of the new states, of slavery, all tied to one great issue. We now face issues involving monetary and fiscal policy, full employment, outer space, control of arms, control of weapons, stronger defense, our influence in Latin America and Africa and Asia, new countries, new leaders, new problems, which swarm and pour across our desk and eventually rest on the desk of the next President of the United States. President Truman used to have a sign which says, "The buck stops here." And in the 1961s, the buck will stop on the desk of the President, will involve more serious problems, involving decisions more highly sophisticated than any in the long history of the United States. How to maintain our people working, how to maintain economic growth in a free society, how to maintain agricultural income when our production increases 6% a year and our consumption 3% a year. How can we maintain the best educational system in the world? How can we be first in outer space and first across the street? How can we extend our influence and the influence of freedom to all those billions of people who live in some cases on an income of $25, $50, or $100 a year, and look at the Chinese and the Russians and look at us and wonder in the 60s which road to take? All these problems are new. All of them are difficult. There's no easy answer to any easy question. But because they're difficult, we need the best talent we can get. In every branch of government, we need the most vigorous, foresighted, far-sighted, intellectually curious, well-informed, and responsible citizens we can get to serve the great republic in the dangerous and changing years of the 1960s. And that's what we intend to do. And one of the ways in which we can do it, one of the ways in which we can contribute to the maintenance of freedom around the world, is to build a strong society here in the United States. We really are the best advertisement for freedom. If we're moving ahead, if our people are working, if we have a sense of national purpose, then quite obviously people around the world who attempted to decide what they want to be and the kind of life they want to lead, they are impressed by us. The reason that Franklin Roosevelt was a figure to contend with in Latin America and Africa and Asia in the 30s was not because American policy was intimately involved in the 30s in most of those areas. It was because they realized that he was attempting to move his country forward, that his government was compassionate and vigorous, and therefore it impressed those who needed those qualities in their own lives. What we are I have been critical in this campaign that the United States has not carried out a more vigorous policy of information around the world. Do you know today, in the changing and vital area of Africa, that we are nearly 14th in radio broadcasts? What we are here, as Emerson said more than a century ago, speaks far louder than what we say. What we're doing here, our sense of destiny and purpose, in the final analysis, as the great servants and defenders of freedom, it is our obligation to build a vital society here which will spread its influence and the influence of freedom throughout the world. One of the problems which we meet in building that vital society is how we care for those who have finished their work, who are retired, whose retirement is imminent. What kind of security and what kind of a life can we give them? And it is on this issue that the parties have divided, and it is on this issue that Mr. Nixon and I have disagreed. The aged be tied to Social Security, that all who are on Social Security that all people who participate in Social Security will pay for their treatment, which will average about 3 cents a day, which will average about $10 a year during their working years. And then when they are retired, after they have contributed to it themselves, they will receive the assistance in paying their bills for the doctors and the hospitalization and all the rest. The measure is balanced financially. It is actuarially sound. It is in the tradition of Social Security. There is no pauper's oath. There is no commitment that we're medically indigent before we receive the assistance, and it does not represent a drain on the Treasury of $2 billion because it's paid for on the way. These are new times requiring new people and new solutions. And I believe that in these kind of times, when this country must move, when it must be inspired by energy, when it must drive ahead, if we're going to survive, if we're going to defend freedom, we cannot sit by and let the world move around us. We have to move with it. We have to lead it. We don't want to be like the leader in the French Revolution who said, "There go my people, I must find out where they're going so I can lead them." We want to lead them ourselves. Believe it. This is a young and vital country. Its best days are ahead. And I come to this county, and I come to Rockford in Illinois, and ask your support in making America move again.